My apartment complex had always felt safe. Third floor, secure building, good neighborhood in Portland. The kind of place where neighbors nodded politely but mostly kept to themselves. My unit was at the end of the hallway, 308, with a decent view of the city skyline and enough distance from the elevator that I rarely heard other residents coming and going. I never worried about security until my schedule changed at the hospital. Working night shifts in the ICU meant coming home at 3 a.m. when the building was silent and dark. The transition was harder than I expected. My sleep schedule was wrecked, and I found myself jumping at shadows, my mind playing tricks on me in that hazy space between exhaustion and alertness. That particular morning in February was especially difficult. I was bone-tired after a 12-hour shift where we'd lost 2 patients. Snow had started falling around midnight, and by the time I left work, it had blanketed the city in 3 inches of powder. Everything was eerily quiet as I pulled into the parking garage, that muffled silence that only comes with heavy snowfall. The security lights flickered overhead, casting strange, elongated shadows across the concrete floor, transforming ordinary pillars and parked cars into looming figures. Just the usual power fluctuations from the winter storm, I told myself, though my heart raced every time the garage plunged into momentary darkness. I gathered my bag and thermos, locked my car, and hurried toward the elevator, my footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. The elevator seemed to take forever, each second stretching as I stood alone in that cavernous garage. When it finally arrived with a cheerful ding that felt out of place in the silence, I stepped inside quickly, pressed the button for the 3rd floor, and leaned against the wall, closing my eyes for just a moment. The gentle hum of the elevator lulled me, and I found myself drifting, not quite asleep but not fully present either. The doors opened with another ding, startling me back to awareness. I trudged down the dimly lit hallway, my shadow stretching before me like a dark companion. Something felt off immediately as I approached my door. The air smelled different, like cologne I didn't recognize, something with notes of sandalwood and something sharper underneath. My door looked exactly the same, locked and untouched, but something about it made me pause. I can't explain it, just a feeling, an instinct that made the hair on my arms stand up. I inserted my key slowly, listening carefully before pushing the door open. The familiar creak of the hinges seemed louder than usual in the pre-dawn quiet. Everything inside appeared normal. My small living room was just as I'd left it, books stacked on the coffee table, throw blanket draped over the couch, dishes from yesterday's breakfast still in the sink. The digital clock on my microwave read 3:17 a.m. I locked the door behind me, slid the chain in place, and dropped my bag on the counter with a relieved sigh. That's when I noticed the bathroom light was on, casting a slice of brightness under the closed door. I never left lights on when I left. Never. My father had drilled energy conservation into me since childhood, and the habit was deeply ingrained. I always did a final check before leaving, lights off, coffee maker unplugged, thermostat turned down. "Hello?" I called out, my voice embarrassingly weak, barely more than a whisper. No response. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sound of wind outside, but nothing else. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement. I grabbed my phone from my pocket, ready to dial 911, and slowly approached the bathroom. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. With trembling fingers, I reached for the doorknob, turned it, and pushed. The door swung open smoothly. The bathroom was empty. Just my towel hanging from the hook, toothbrush in its holder, shower curtain pulled back, everything normal. Except for the mirror. Written in the steam, as if someone had just taken a hot shower minutes before, were the words, "Nice to meet you, Dr. Morris." My last name. Which wasn't on my apartment door. Which I rarely used at work, where everyone called me by my first name. I backed away, nearly tripping over nothing, frantically checking every corner of my apartment. Closets, under the bed, behind curtains, even inside the cabinet under the kitchen sink where only cleaning supplies lived. No one was there. But someone had been. And they knew who I was. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, one older with a lined face who took notes in a small spiral pad, one younger who checked the locks and windows with methodical precision. They found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints besides mine on any surface. The building's security cameras showed no one entering my apartment. The officer with the notepad suggested condensation might have revealed old writing on the mirror, perhaps from a previous tenant or something I'd written myself and forgotten. Happens all the time, he said kindly, clearly seeing how shaken I was. Steam brings out old marks. Probably been there for months, just waiting for the right conditions to show itself. But I knew better. Because when I finally gathered the courage to shower the next day, after a sleepless night with a chair propped under my doorknob, I noticed something I'd missed during my panicked search, a handprint pressed against the outside of my bathroom window. My 3rd-floor bathroom window. A window that faced nothing but a 30-foot drop to the pavement below. The handprint was larger than mine, with long fingers splayed wide. It wasn't smudged or partial. It was perfect, as if someone had pressed their hand firmly against the glass while looking in at me. I called the police again. This time, they took photographs. They dusted for prints. They asked if I had any enemies, any patients who might have fixated on me, any ex-relationships gone sour. They installed a small camera in my hallway, pointed at my door. 3 days later, that camera captured a man I'd never seen before trying my doorknob at exactly 2:43 a.m., 17 minutes before I usually arrived home from my shift. He was wearing scrubs identical to mine, the same blue-green color our hospital used. He had his back to the camera, but when he turned slightly, I caught a glimpse of something on his chest, a name badge that reflected the hallway light. The police enhanced the footage but couldn't make out the name. When they went to the hospital to check recent hires or temporary staff, no one matching his description worked there. No one had issued him a badge. I moved out the next day, but I still sometimes wake up at 3:17 a.m., feeling watched. I've changed hospitals, changed cities. But sometimes, when I'm in the bathroom and the mirror fogs up, I hold my breath, waiting for words to appear. And sometimes, they do. I never believed in coincidences. Growing up with a detective for a father taught me that patterns always mean something, you have to figure out what they're trying to tell you. So when the same number called me 3 nights at exactly 11:23 p.m., I knew something wasn't right. It started on a Tuesday in late October. I was alone in my house in the suburbs of Minneapolis, having recently divorced and moved to a quiet neighborhood where I hoped to start fresh. It was the kind of place where people still left bikes unattended in front yards and children played outside until dusk. I'd spent the evening unpacking the last of my boxes, finally feeling like this place might become home. When my phone rang that first night, I didn't recognize the number. It was just a local area code and 7 digits that meant nothing to me. I answered with a casual, hello, expecting perhaps a wrong number or a late call from a new colleague. All I heard was static and what sounded like distant traffic, the whoosh of cars passing on wet pavement. I checked the time, 11:23 p.m., and said hello again. When the static continued, I hung up, assuming it was a bad connection or a pocket dial. The second night, I recognized the number immediately when it lit up my screen, again, exactly at 11:23 p.m. This time, I answered with, "Who is this?" The static remained, but beneath it, I could make out breathing. Deliberate, measured breathing in something that might have been my name, whispered so softly I couldn't be sure. "I can hear you," I said firmly. "If you're trying to reach me, your connection is bad." The breathing continued for exactly 10 more seconds before the call ended. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about the precision of the timing, not just the same hour, but the exact minute. 11:23, it's not a round number like 11:30 or 11. 00, which might suggest an automated system. The specificity bothered me. By the third night, I was prepared. I sat in my darkened living room, lights off, watching my phone as the minutes ticked toward 11:23. I had positioned myself away from windows, an irrational precaution that nevertheless made me feel more in control. When the phone rang, right on schedule, I answered but said nothing, listening intently. For almost 30 seconds, there was only static. Then a voice. Male, I thought, though distorted by the poor connection, spoke clearly through the white noise. I can see you sitting there, it said. Blue couch. Red shirt. Lights off. My blood turned to ice. I slowly turned toward my front window, where the blinds were partially open, just enough for someone outside to peer in if they were close to the glass. Across the street, illuminated by a streetlight, stood a figure holding what appeared to be a phone to their ear. What do you want? I managed to ask, but my mouth suddenly dried. To come inside, the voice replied. I've been watching you for weeks. I know when you sleep. When you eat. When you shower. I know you leave your kitchen window unlocked because the frame is warped and it doesn't close properly. The figure across the street raised an arm, pointing directly at me. You changed the bedroom blinds yesterday, the voice continued. The new ones are beige. The old ones were white with a tear in the bottom right corner. You threw them in the trash can on the side of the house. Every detail was correct. The kitchen window that I struggled with each morning. The blinds I'd replaced just yesterday after noticing the tear. Details no random caller could possibly know. I hung up and called the police immediately, keeping my eyes on the figure across the street. While I was giving my address to the dispatcher, the figure lowered their arm and slowly walked away, disappearing between two houses. The police arrived within minutes, but of course, the figure was gone. 2 officers searched the area while another stayed with me, taking notes about the calls. They checked around my house and confirmed what I already knew. My kitchen window was unlocked, exactly as the caller said. I'd recommend staying somewhere else tonight, the younger officer told me. We'll increase patrols in the area, but without a clear threat. I finished his thought silently. Without a clear threat, there wasn't much they could do. They traced the calls to a prepaid phone purchased with cash at a convenience store 5 miles away. The store's security footage showed the buyer wearing a hooded jacket, face carefully angled away from cameras. Average height, average build, nothing distinctive enough to identify them. For the next week, I stayed with my sister, had my locks changed, and installed the security system. I fixed the kitchen window, put up motion detector lights, and convinced myself that the caller had been scared off by the police response. When I finally returned home, I felt safer. The security system gave me peace of mind. The new deadbolts were solid. I even adopted a large dog from the shelter, a German Shepherd mix named Rex who barked at every unfamiliar sound. I started to relax. The calls had stopped. Life settled into a new normal. Until last night, when my phone rang at exactly 11:23 p.m. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity or perhaps a need for closure, made me pick up on the final ring. This time, the voice was clearer. No static. No distortion. New locks won't keep me out, it said calmly. I already have what I need. The call ended before I could respond. Rex, who had been sleeping at the foot of my bed, suddenly raised his head and growled toward the hallway. After hanging up, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My spare key was missing from its hiding place in the drawer of my bedside table. The police are here now, taking another report. They've been kind, but I can see the doubt in their eyes, wondering if I'm just paranoid, if I might have misplaced the key myself. They don't understand the precision of this person, the methodical way they've studied my life. I'm writing this from a hotel room across town. Rex is with me, alert and watching the door. My phone is on the bedside table. It's 11:22 p.m. The package arrived on a Wednesday afternoon in early June. It was a beautiful day in my quiet neighborhood in Tucson, the kind where everyone had their windows open to catch the rare cool breeze before summer's heat settled in for good. I'd been working from home, finishing a report for my consulting job, when I heard the soft thud of something being placed on my front porch. I wasn't expecting any deliveries. I walked to the door and peered through the peephole, catching a glimpse of someone walking away, not in a delivery uniform, just a plain dark jacket. By the time I opened the door, they were gone. There, perfectly centered on my welcome mat, sat a small brown box. No shipping label, no postage, no return address, just a small brown package about the size of a paperback book. My name was handwritten on the top in neat block letters. I brought it inside, turning it over in my hands. It was lightweight, sealed with clear packing tape. Nothing rattled when I shook it gently. Nothing about it seemed threatening, yet something felt off about receiving an unmarked package. After a moment's hesitation, I cut through the tape and opened it. Inside, nestled in a bed of white tissue paper, was a single item, an old-fashioned brass key attached to a circular tag with the number 17 etched into it. The key looked vintage, the kind you might use for an antique chest or an old house. No note, no explanation. Just the key. I assumed it was delivered to the wrong address, though my name was clearly written on the box. Perhaps it was meant for another Rebecca Miller. I set it aside on my kitchen counter, planning to ask my neighbors about it later. That night, I had trouble sleeping. The summer heat had settled into the walls of my house, making the air stuffy despite the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. I drifted in and out of consciousness until I was awakened at exactly 3:17 a.m. by a sound I couldn't immediately place, a soft, rhythmic clicking. I lay perfectly still, sheets sticking to my skin, listening as it continued. Click, click, click. It was coming from my front door. The sound of a key, struggling to turn in a lock. My mouth went dry. I slid out of bed and crept to the hallway, keeping the lights off. The clicking stopped abruptly, as if whoever was there had sensed my movement. Then came a gentle knock, barely audible, more like a scratch against the wood. Hello. I called through the door, my phone in hand ready to call for help. Who's there? Silence. I gathered my courage and checked the peephole but saw nothing except the empty corridor of my apartment building illuminated by the dim safety lights. After several minutes with no further sounds, I convinced myself it had been the building settling or a neighbor returning late, trying the wrong door. But morning brought evidence that proved otherwise. When I opened my door to leave for work, I found a note slipped under the door, written on plain white paper in the same neat handwriting that had been on the package. Wrong key. We'll try again tomorrow. Number 17. My hands trembled as I read it. I reported it to the building manager immediately, who seemed concerned but confused. We don't have an apartment 17, he said, frowning at the note. This building only goes up to 12. The police took a report when I called, but said they couldn't do much without more to go on. No threats had been made. No crime had been committed except perhaps trespassing in the hallway. They suggested I stay with someone else for a few days and report any further incidents. That night, I stayed with my sister across town, bringing the brass key with me, though I wasn't sure why. Perhaps I thought if I had it, whoever left it couldn't use it. When I returned to my apartment the following afternoon, I immediately noticed something was wrong. The brass key was gone from where I'd left it in my purse. In its place, sitting on my kitchen counter, was a different key, newer, silver, with the same 17 tag. Someone had been in my apartment while I was gone. They had gone through my purse. They had taken one key and left another. I called the police again. This time, they did a thorough search but found no signs of forced entry. My windows were locked from the inside. My door showed no scratch marks around the lock. It was as if the person had simply materialized inside my home. Do you think someone else has a key to your apartment? the officer asked. I shook my head. Only the building manager, and he was with me when I discovered the key was switched. They took the silver key as evidence and promised to increase patrols in the area. I had my locks changed that afternoon, paying extra for a high-security system that couldn't be easily picked or duplicated. For the next 3 nights, I heard nothing. No clicking, no knocking. I began to relax slightly, hoping perhaps the police involvement had scared off whoever was playing this strange game. Then Sunday night, my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number at exactly 3:17 a.m., waking me from a fitful sleep. Found the right key. See you soon. Number 17. Seconds later, I heard the unmistakable sound of my front door unlocking, the new lock, the one that had been installed just days before. My body froze as footsteps entered my apartment, slow, deliberate steps that paused in my living room. Then they continued, coming closer to my bedroom. I could see my door handle turning slowly, the metal catching the faint moonlight from my window. As the door began to open, I heard a voice, soft but clear, "Room 17 is ready for you now." I don't remember screaming. My neighbors told the police later that it sounded like someone was being murdered. By the time they broke down my door, there was no one there except me, huddled in the corner of my bedroom, clutching my phone with 911 still on the line. The police found no evidence of an intruder. My new front door lock was intact, unscratched, showing no signs of being picked or forced. The security camera I had installed in my living room showed my front door opening on its own, no one visible entering or leaving. I moved out the next day, leaving most of my belongings behind. I couldn't bear to touch anything, feeling like every object in that apartment had been contaminated somehow. It's been 6 months since then. I've moved twice, changed my phone number, even changed jobs to work remotely so my location wouldn't be easy to track. Last week, a small brown box arrived at my new address, an address that's not listed anywhere, that I've shared only with my immediate family. I didn't open it. I could feel the weight inside, the weight of a key. I'm leaving tomorrow for somewhere without an address. Somewhere off the grid. I just hope it doesn't have a room 17. Remember, the most terrifying visitors are those who know exactly when and how to find you. If you enjoyed these stories, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss our next episode.